Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into ACIM, specifically Lesson 167, to unpack what is honestly a profound and transformative philosophical paradigm shift. We're going to break down some incredibly deep concepts from the text and make them super accessible. By the end of this, we'll have walked step by step through a completely new way of viewing reality, life, and what we commonly refer to as death.
The absolute core of what we're looking at today is this incredible statement: there is one life, and that I share with God. According to the text, life isn't something that has degrees. You don't have a little bit of life or a lot of life. There aren't different kinds of life for different beings. Instead, life is presented as this singular, unified condition that all of creation shares. And because it is this ultimate unified truth, it fundamentally has no opposite.
Now, this brings us to a massive, and I mean massive, shift in how we understand our world. We usually think of death as a biological end, right? The physical stopping of a body. But this lesson completely redefines it. It describes death strictly as an idea in the mind. Specifically, it's the false thought or belief that you are separate from your Creator. The text actually defines death as the root cause, the underlying alarm system for literally all feelings that are not supremely happy.
To really wrap our heads around how radical this is, let's look at how the text claims we supposedly acknowledge death every single day. We aren't just talking about existential dread here. According to this lesson, anytime we experience sorrow, loss, anxiety, or suffering, we are responding to that false alarm of separation. But look at those last 3 points. Even a little sigh of weariness, a slight discomfort, the merest frown. The text argues that yielding to any of these is an acknowledgement of death because they deny perfect joy, and therefore deny that you truly live in that unified state we just talked about.
What's really fascinating here is how the text completely separates the mind from the physical body. You might naturally think death belongs to the body, but the text insists it is strictly an idea, completely irrelevant to what we see as physical. So why does this matter? Well, a thought exists in the mind, and ideas do not leave their source. This means that if you want to experience healing or change your reality, you can't start with the physical body. The mind is exactly where the change has to happen because the mind is the origin of the idea itself.
So how does this illusion actually work? The text explains the mechanics with this really powerful quote. It is the fixed belief ideas can leave their source and take on qualities the source does not contain. The whole illusion of death and suffering relies entirely on this one mistaken belief. It's the crazy assumption that we can somehow break away from our origin, our flawless Creator, travel across distance and time, and somehow pick up negative qualities like pain, decay, or sadness that our original source doesn't even possess. The text emphatically states this is literally impossible.
This naturally brings us to the core dichotomy of the entire lesson, the contrast between two completely different states of mind. First, you have the mind awake, which is reality. It represents life, unity, joy, an unchanging nature, and being forever united with its source. In stark contrast, we have what the text calls the mind asleep. And this isn't reality at all. It's a dream state characterized by death, separation, anxiety, illusion, and changes that have absolutely no real substance. The lesson is constantly nudging us to realize which state we are currently choosing to operate from.
So here is the crucial takeaway. The text clarifies that the opposite of life isn't actually another reality, and it definitely isn't death, because life has no true opposite. What appears to be the opposite of life is merely the mind sleeping. It's just the mind deciding to assume a foreign state, a fake condition that doesn't actually exist within its source. Basically, the mind has just closed its eyes and gone to sleep for a while.
Okay, so what exactly is happening when the mind is in this sleep state? Well, it dreams of time. It imagines this whole interval where things appear to be occurring, but fundamentally, the text argues that nothing really happens. The changes that seem so incredibly real and stressful to us are completely substanceless. The events we worry about are literally nowhere. It's exactly like tossing and turning in a bad nightmare. It feels terrifyingly real in the moment, but the second you wake up, you realize none of it actually took place.
To really drive this home, the lesson poses this absolutely brilliant rhetorical question. Who changes life because he shuts his eyes? Seriously, think about that for a second. If you close your eyes right now and imagine you are someone completely different, or that you're in terrible danger, does that change your actual, objective reality? Nope. The text uses this to challenge our entire perception. Just because your mind falls asleep and dreams of an opposite to what you truly are, dreaming of pain or separation, it doesn't actually change your true eternal life one single bit.
The answer to that question is a resounding no, because the text states that God creates only a mind awake. He doesn't sleep. Therefore, his creations cannot share in a condition like sleep or death that he doesn't give them. The thoughts of God remain forever changeless, entirely unopposed by opposites of any kind. They have the immense power to extend everywhere, but their core reality never, ever alters.
So what do we actually do with this? The lesson gives us a beautiful call to action. Let us today be children of the truth and not deny our holy heritage. It's asking us to claim our truth today, to absolutely refuse to let imagined opposites like pain, fear, or even that little sigh of weariness hang around in our minds. It challenges us not to ask for death in any form, but to recognize that eternal life has already been permanently established within us.
As we move toward the climax of the lesson, we naturally have to ask, what actually happens when we stop dreaming? Well, when the mind awakes, the text tells us it just continues as it always was. The sleeping mind finally sees its own inherent perfection, it fades back into the reflection of its source, and ultimately it realizes it is fundamentally part of that eternal light. It stops being this isolated, fearful observer and fully embraces the unity it never actually left.
And you know what's wild? At this final stage of awakening, the text tells us that no vision is even needed anymore. The need to perceive or interpret all these illusions just falls away entirely. The awakened mind doesn't need to struggle. It simply continues as it always was, resting firmly in the knowledge that it is one with its source. All those nightmares and dreams just disappear in the face of this direct, perfect knowing.
Which brings us right back full circle to where we started. We ultimately share life because we share one single source, a source from which perfection constantly flows to us and, more importantly, remains eternally present in our minds. As the text assures us, we share life with Him and with all creation in a unity that simply cannot separate into death. Absolutely nothing you dream up in that sleeping state can alter the fundamental reality of this shared, singular life.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If every worry, every frown, or every sigh of weariness is actually just a temporary dream of separation, just a tiny symptom of a mind asleep, what will you choose to awaken to in this very instant? The choice to stay in the dream or to claim that one incredible shared life is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me to explore Lesson 167.